Hey, it's the Names and Coffee podcast. This is Alex. If you're new here, I have been in the name world for over 10 years, and I was the first name account on Instagram featuring names every day, and I'm Names Daily on Instagram, and I did that on purpose because I said, Alex, if you don't put daily in your name, you're going to fall off the wagon pretty quick. And sure enough, man, when I hit those creative blocks, daily definitely pushed me to keep doing it every day. And I'm so glad. I am so lucky and so honored. The community that has formed over time and the women I've gotten to connect up with, and I've seen them have a couple of babies, and the women that are still trying to have babies that are they're just pillars of grace to me. And I am just the luckiest. I've learned so much, and I know that I have so much more to learn, and that really excites me. So do you have your cup of coffee? I do. Oh my gosh, I've been loving putting sweet cream in my coffee. Normally, I hate sugar in my coffee. I just like straight up cream. But as a treat lately, I've been putting sweet cream in my coffee, and it's been so good. And if you're not grinding your beans yourself, you're greatly missing out on the robustness of your cup of joe. So anyway, today I wanted to share some of my thoughts about honoring and just share my perspective about it. A lot of times, you guys slide into my DMs and you're like, hey girl, hey, I have a question to ask you. And I'm like, yes. And you talk about how you want to honor somebody, or your husband wants to honor somebody, or your partner wants to honor somebody. And you either hate the name, but you feel tied to having to use that. Like, this person's name was this. So, if his name was Erneld Habicus the fifth, you're like, I have no other choice. I've got to do this. And I, first of all, I don't like to be told what to do. This lovely little trait runs my life. And so I go, well, first of all, I want to do what I want to do. But secondly, I am all about honoring. I think that it is such a gem to pass on to your kids, especially with moments or places or people that really impacted you. And it's like your way of speaking over somebody. I think that can be really powerful. But if you feel forced into it, nobody wants to be forced into anything, especially something so joyous as giving this child a name that they're going to carry around the rest of their life. And so I would just put out there that it does not have to be black and white. You can totally honor somebody you love or don't love. You could totally honor somebody by not having to use their straight up name. In my book, I called it Honoring Essence. I have a whole page where I talk about honoring, and I put it in my book like, you have a brand new kitchen and this old appliance, and you're like, this old appliance doesn't fit in my kitchen, and it was great for a different time, but it's just not working in this kitchen. And you can go, well, how do I get an appliance with the same vibe, the same cool features, but that fits? And, sometimes a name feels like you have a 36-inch refrigerator and a 12-inch gap, So you can honor the style, the person, and not actually have to use their name. And I actually think that when you open up yourself to this idea, it is so fun. It just gets your creative juices flowing of saying, if this person didn't have a name, How would I honor them? And, like, what were their hobbies? If I said a word or a thing, would that immediately make you think of him, like, or him or her, like, oh my gosh, he was so into motocross, or oh my gosh, he just loved rock climbing, or she was the most beautiful artist I've ever seen, or she was so good in the kitchen, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what were their things? What were their favorite flowers? What was their favorite color? What was their scent? Like, oh, she always wore jasmine perfume, or he, you know what I'm trying to say? What are things that you love the most about that person? Because sometimes we don't love their name the most, and that is totally okay to admit. It's not saying you dislike the person. I'm not saying to go to their face and say, I think your name is disgusting and I'm not going to bequeath this to your grandkid or my kid. I think that is so rude. But within yourself, you can say, I just don't dig the name, and find a different way. My grandmother's name was Dorcas, and her mother's best friend, her name was Dorcas. And I don't ever know what happened. The older family doesn't really talk a lot about things. And so there are some pictures of them together when they're young, but I don't really know what happened to her best friend. All I know is that by the time she had grandma, she named her Dorcas, and then my grandma never grew up knowing about Dorcas, so I don't know if she passed away, but it was important to my great-great-grandmother that my great-grandmother got the name Dorcas, and my grandmother hated it. She was like, don't call me Dorcas. And she loved to be called Dottie. And sometimes Babs. I have no idea where Babs came from. So something was given to her with so much love, and my grandma just couldn't. She didn't not appreciate it, but she was like, my name is seriously Dorcas. And that's hard. In and of itself, it's a fine name, but it's a hard one to wear, and she didn't like to wear it. She preferred to be called Dottie. And maybe that's why I absolutely love polka dots, because it reminds me of Graham. And I think that when we honor people, maybe it's not so much the name or the person as it is passing on this heritage. I have such a heart for my grandmothers, and I honor them. They were fantastic women. They really impacted my life, and I wanted to pass that on to my daughter, to say, these are the line of women that you have come from. These are the things that they survived. These are the things that they accomplished, and this is what you're made of. And I'm lucky in that way that I have some great family legacy behind me. And I've had to grapple with the fact that I can't just pass on all of their names to my daughter. So it's made me think, how do I go about that? And continue having them live on. I think that's another thing we grapple with, is I want to pass this name on so that such and such lives on. It's the finality of death is so hard sometimes, and we want them to desperately live on. And it's something that I have grappled with. But I can't use every name of every person And so I've kind of said, what is really important to me? What is important to honor them? And one idea that I had is, I don't know if it would end up looking totally creepy or not, but I'm seriously considering trying it, is finding a wall in my home and making it a memory wall, and getting really cool frames and putting either pictures of people inside or something that they loved and putting their name on it. And my kids grow up seeing these people, because me being the hipster millennial that I am, like, I'm sorry if you have this in your home, but it absolutely freaks me out having just random old people pictures, like old pictures. It just freaked me out so bad. So I don't have pictures of people everywhere in my house. I just can't handle it. Like, it's not a part of my decor, but I would be totally open to having a small space that was dedicated to that I could make look really cool and really pretty. Another idea that I had is someday I really want to have a farm. And on my farm, I want to create what I want to call a memory bank. And I want to create a whole bank and plant a whole bunch of flowers on there. And then instead of having sticks with the names of the flowers, filling it with all names of all the people I really treasure. And I don't know if that will end up happening. It's something that I've thought about for a while. Of ways to honor them, ways to honor my grandpa, and all these things that I want to pass on my knowledge of them to my kids. I think honoring people before you is so important. It's so important to remember the times that they lived through and honor them and say, yeah, they are people, and these are people that I loved. And I also have this thing where I am like really protective of my kids and their names, where I think that's a part of the reason why with Reagan I've struggled with name regret, that I'm having to walk through that, of why I can't let it go, is because it's so important to me that I don't want to just give my child a name just because. You know, when you have another person involved in naming your babies, that comes with compromise and hashing it out and all of that. But I would just encourage you to not just slap a name on there just because you feel obligated. Like, that has to get worked out. And there's no reason that you couldn't use a variation of the name. You know, if, let's just say, for instance, that you're wanting to honor a Theodore, but it's not your style. Well, what about Theo or Teddy or Ted or Ned? And also another idea is, what is that person's middle name? Or what is the last name? Sometimes that could be so fun. I gave Reagan my maiden name as her middle name, and it's like, here's this beautiful heritage that I want you to be reminded of every time you say your name. And that's another, to me, an extremely beautiful way to honor heritage and people and legacy. So this is just some food for thought for you to chew on. I love the idea of honoring, and I also love getting creative with it. It's really fun. I hope this finds you well and gets you thinking about some things, and I hope you live a good life. Talk to you later. hope you live a good life. I hope you live a good